Hello everyone. In the series of Principles of Agronomy by Reddy and Reddy, today we'll be dealing with chapter number 5, that is soil environment and its modification. I know we have skipped chapter number 4, that is crop growth and development, because the majority, if you talk of the fourth chapter, majority of the things that it has been covering is photosynthesis, respiration, various phytohormones, that is auxin, gibberellin, like this all part is related to the physiological part. All right, and we'll have a separate video in of physiology. First we'll cover that. We'll have a basic understanding that how does the process of photosynthesis, the respiration, various intermediate compounds, how all these are related, and then we'll cover again this chapter number 4. So today we'll be modification. See, this is basic, the introduction part of the chapter, that is about the environment and the crop growth, how it is influenced. While soil environment means various kinds of environments that affect the soil. Basically, this is the introductory part. After that, we have soil formation. So you might have gone through two words, that one is pedology and the other is edaphology. See, pedology means the science that deals with the genesis, that means formation and distribution kind of aspect of soil. It is known as pedology, Peadology. And in case of edaphology, whenever there is soil is being read in terms of crop production or for the human welfare, it is known as edaphology. So let's begin. See, soil formation. See, everyone knows that soil formation process is, that means it does not occur within a day or year. It has been going through thousands and millions of years, and rocks and minerals are there, and because of which weathering, we have finally seen the soil that is around us is a process of thousands of years. Means the soil that we see around has not been formed within just 1 or 2 years. It is a continuous process, and let's not talking about much about it. Let's straightforward move to rocks and minerals. See, soils are formed from rocks, and rocks are a mixture of minerals. See, this is very important statement, that soil is formed from rocks means the basic structure is rock, and after that rock constitutes a mixture of minerals, means there are several minerals. If we compile all these minerals, it will form rock. All right, so minerals are basically inorganic homogeneous substances that have a definite composition. See, whenever any structure has a definite composition, it will be crystalline. All right, and when it has an indefinite composition, then it would be amorphous. So remember these words, that mineral are, number one, inorganic, second is they are homogeneous, and third is that they have a definite composition and structure. All right, now these minerals have been classified into basically two types, that is primary minerals and the secondary minerals. See, primary minerals are those minerals that are formed from these original rocks, and that have been crystallized at high temperature, means the original rock form that have been formed because of high temperature. Minerals that are being present in these types of rocks are known as primary minerals. Now secondary minerals are those minerals that are formed by soluble substance from primary minerals and are precipitated or recrystallized. See, as you might have understood that primary minerals are those that are directly forming the rocks, while secondary minerals are those that have been formed due to some of the physical processes occurring in them, and they usually form secondary minerals. After that, there are certain examples of primary minerals like quartz, feldspar, orthoclase, elbite, mica, biotite, hornblende, and olivine. See, these there are so many examples of primary as well as secondary minerals, but what here in this chapter, what are the important ones are being mentioned, though they have not been asked in JRF examination, but if you will be giving your state entrance examinations, then they are generally asked in any of the state. So in soil science part, So basically you must remember that out of the following which one is a primary mineral and which one is not. For example, if a question is being asked like out of the following which is not a primary mineral, and options are given like quartz, feldspar, orthoclase, and the fourth option is dolomite. So dolomite is a secondary mineral, so one must be knowing that which of the following is primary and which of the following is secondary, because they are very confusing at times. In case of secondary minerals, gypsum is very important, because we don't know that whether gypsum is secondary mineral or primary mineral, because we easily relate these minerals with secondary like kaolinite, montmorillonite, chlorite. These these types of minerals we have been dealing with in day to day, or during our BSc agriculture program, that kaolinite, montmorillonite, chlorite, and hematite, orthoclase, mica, biotite. These are very basic minerals, but gypsum is also very basic. But the part is that we usually confuse that whether it is primary or secondary. So remember that it is a primary mineral, not secondary mineral. After that, based on the formation and structures, rocks are being classified into three types, that is igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic rocks. See, igneous rocks are those that are formed from cooling and solidification of molten material, that is lava. This is very important line, that igneous, which of the following, like the question is being asked, which of the following rocks has been formed from cooling and solidification of lava. So the answer is igneous rock. After that, sedimentary rocks are formed by sediment deposition and consolidation. Means sediment deposition of what? Igneous rock deposition. After that, metamorphic rocks are formed either from igneous rock or from sedimentary rock by the process of heat or pressure. Means continuous heat application and pressure application leads to the formation of metamorphic rocks. Now, the important igneous rocks, these are the various examples of igneous rocks, that is granite, basalt, diorite, and trap. If we talk of granite, it is a hard, massive, crystalline, coarse grain rock. The two points are very important, that it is first of all crystalline, and the other important part is that it is coarse grain. Why I am focusing on coarse grain? Because this has been asked once in SRF examination. And the other important part is that basalt, which is another igneous rock, it is fine grained. So remember that granite is coarse grained while basalt is fine grained. Also, there are certain important sedimentary rocks. Basically, sedimentary rocks have been classified into arenaceous and argillaceous rocks. Now, this argillaceous rocks are basically of two types, that is loose and hard. There are other classification. If we talk of loose argillaceous rocks, they include sand, grit, shingle, and gravel. Now, the sand consists of quartz grain. See, basically, you make a table, right there, sedimentary rocks, then classify them, the sedimentary rocks, into two types. One is arenaceous rocks and the other is argillaceous rocks. Now, in case of argillaceous rocks, write down loose argillaceous rocks, and on one side write sand, grit, shingle, and gravel, because it would be easier if you write in this manner, make a tabular form or a flowchart form. Alright, so in case of sand, you write sand is made from quartz, because if you, when you read in flowchart manner, you will be having an easy way of understanding, because if you say they are relatable, like sand consists of quartz grain. Now grit is a sharp and angular sand. Alright, means grit has been formed from sand. Now shingle is a rounded pebble, and gravel is a mixture of all this, that is, it is angular and rounded pebble. So basically, if you make a flowchart, you will be having um, a very smoothness in understanding. Alright, after that there are solid arenaceous rocks, and that includes conglomerate and sandstone. See, if you talk of loose, it consists of sand, grit, shingle, and gravel. While in case of solid, basically there are two types, that is conglomerates and sandstones. Now, conglomerates are made up of various size fragments, that is together they are cemented and form rocks. Now, basically, sandstone are the cemented strands. This is very important statement. Now, argillaceous rocks include shales and laterites. See, I'm just dictating what has been written. What the point I'm trying to make is that there is nothing that I have to make you understand in these paragraphs. All right. What important thing is that you just go through this paragraph, make a flow chart. It will be very useful for you to understand as well as to revise. If you will go through in a paragraph manner, you will always go through various hurdles, because each time you like if you each time you come to revise this, you will be having great confusion. So make tabular form, or not tabular, flowchart form. Same is the case with this also. Alright, so I am skipping this part. I am directly coming to weathering. Alright, now weathering is very important part, or I must say very important topic of this chapter, because there are various processes that are involved in weathering. Alright, now weathering is a physical, chemical and biological process. Means it is not just physical, it is both, sorry, not both, it is a combination of physical, chemical and biological processes. Now the important part is that in case of physical process, there is no chemical change that occurs, while in case of chemical and biological processes, there will be a certain amount of chemical change that will occur. So in case of physical process, there is no chemical change. Alright, this is important, you remember this. After that, the important part is the various forms of chemical weathering. Alright, see, biological weathering will occur because of what? Various biological agents. Alright, this is very easy to understand. Physical will occur because of splitting of the rocks, or due to water, or due to winds. Wind has not much role, but specifically if we talk about water and temperature, these are the basic factors that are responsible for physical process of weathering. But the important part is the chemical weathering. See, chemical weathering occurs mainly due to six processes, and these six processes are very important. I'm again saying that go through this weathering part very thoroughly. So let's begin this six process. Out of this, the first is solution, hydrolysis, hydration, oxidation, reduction and carbonation. Alright, so if you talk of first of all solution, see, it is a process in which particles are separated from solid material into independent ions. See, basically if you go through the verbal meaning of what solution is, you will easily come to know that what solution is a method of chemical weathering. See, what in solution occurs, there are ions formation occurs. Same is cases here also, in which the solid material is separated and form ions, which is surrounded by liquid molecules. This is very simple. And solution is basically formed in water, so water also is present here. The process of solution is enhanced by certain other acids like HNO2, HNO3, that are basically present in the atmosphere, because of various gases like NO2, NO3, they react with water vapor in the atmosphere and form HNO2 and HNO3, as well as H2SO4 and H3PO4. The important part is this only, that solution is a process that particles are separated from solid material into independent ions surrounded by liquid molecules. Alright, other important part is hydrolysis. See, hydrolysis is very important part. One thing I would like to mention, that the formation of secondary minerals from primary minerals occurs because of the process of hydrolysis. Alright, hydrolysis means, simply, hydro means water, lysis means breakdown. So breakdown of water molecule into O and OH, that is oxygen and hydroxyl ion, is known as hydrolysis. Now because of this breakdown, certain amount of energy is being released, and water gets, I must say, entrapped in it, because of which there is a crack formation that occurs and splitting of rocks occurs. So basically hydrolysis is one of the most important processes. Chemical weathering, this is true, and is the main process of clay formation. This is very important, that the main process of clay formation from primary minerals is hydrolysis. Alright, and the other important part is that the hydrolysis of orthoclase feldspar. Alright, if you simply remember that feldspar transform into acid silicate clay, this is because of hydrolysis, and basic potassium hydroxide, both of which are soluble. See, this is not important. Important part is that autoclave feldspar or hydrolysis, it forms acid silicate clay and basic potassium hydroxide, mean both acid and basic structures are being formed. Now other important process of chemical weathering is carbonation. See, carbonation is at the term itself indicates, it means carbonic acid formation will occur, or somewhere or how carbon will be relatable. Now carbonic acid is formed due to the reaction of carbon dioxide with water, alright, and carbonates and bicarbonates are formed by the carbonation process. Basically, because of carbonation process, what happens is that the calcite will transform into a more soluble calcium carbonate. Alright, calcite is specifically CaCO3 only, but it would form a more stable calcium bicarbonate, that is CaHCO3. Alright, after that hydration. See, what is hydrolysis? It is the breakdown of water. What is hydration? This is inclusion, that is addition of water in the mineral structure, causing it to swell and leaving it more stressed. So, what does it mean? That here breakdown of water molecule does not occur. The water through cracks or wherever cracks are being present in the rocks, it enters through it and it swells the rocks and leaving it more stressed. Because of this stress and tension, the rocks break up into certain smaller particles. Now, minerals like feldspar, amphiboles, and mica are generally hydrated. This is important. But the important thing you remember that do not confuse that feldspar, these are being hydrated. So the answer for this acid silicate clay formation will also be hydration. It is, remember specifically that in case of hydrolysis of orthoclase feldspar, it would transform into acid silicate clay and basic potassium hydroxide. Alright. Now other important part is oxidation. Simply oxidation is what? Addition of oxygen will occur, then oxidation will be there. Alright, same is the case with reduction, means removal of oxygen or addition of hydrogen. It is basically known as a reduction. Now like for example, ferric oxide under waterlogged conditions, it is reduced to form ferrous form. See, ferrous is what? Fe2 plus, and this ferric oxide is what? It is plus 3. Alright, and in case of ferrous, it is in plus 2 form. Alright, now various factors that influence the soil formation process. Alright, there are various factors like climate, parent material, topography, microfauna and fauna. So if we talk of climate, the important climatic factor that influence the soil formation are precipitation and temperature. Means out of various climatic factors like radium, humidity, etc., the most important factors are precipitation and temperature. Alright, so if you want to go through, you can go through this, but you must, I must not say must, you can skip all this. If you want to go through, you can go through this. Yes, this is important, that a rock is the source of all mineral materials. Alright, and the various chemical formulas of various minerals are being given. Like for quartz, it is represented at SiO2. For calcite, it is represented as CaCO3. Feldspar as KAlSi3O8. mica as KMgFe3AlSi3O10O2. Just remember this, that quartz is known as SiO2, calcite CaCO3, feldspar as this, and you can just remember that the longest formula is of mica. One important part is also there, that the minerals that are rich in basalt, specifically they form black soil, and which is rich in nutrients. While if you talk of sandstone, those soils that are formed from sandstones, they are poor in mineral and nutrients. Alright, so topography, that has no, specifically if you understand, if there will be a high, very high slope or very low slope, both will have a decremental effect on soil formation process, while intermediate topography is affords the best condition for the formation of an agricultural productive soil. See, basically this is the case study. After that, micro and macrofauna. The important part is that sometimes there is a question like, which of the following includes in microfauna and which of the following includes in macrofauna. See, fungi, bacteria, viruses, all these are included in what? That is microfauna. Fauna means plant. So So fungi, bacteria, viruses, or these included in microfauna. While in case of macro, these are like earthworms, snails. These are not included in macrofauna. So you can remember this. After that, this is not important. Like you can see that termite and ants, they also retard soil formation by donating large areas. This is not important, this is just a basic understanding. After that, this also you can skip. Now human activities, because of the influence of humans, there has been the acceleration of a process of weathering. There's been a great acceleration in the weathering process. After that, soil forming processes, means how does the soil formation has been occurred. This is just a history that is being given. Same is also here also, so you can skip all this is not important. After that, you can skip this is just history that is being mentioned. You can skip this, just go through this paragraph. This is important just for understanding purpose. Go through this paragraph. After that, this is also not important. Now soil development, this is also not important. The important part is this, that the soil development follows a sigmoid curve. This is very important. And this has been asked in JRF 2000. I don't exactly remember, 16 or 15 examination. It has been asked that soil development follows soil development is follows which graph. So the options were like exponential, a sigmoid, and there were other options like linear. So the answer is sigmoid. After that, rate of development, see, the important part is that the soil development is progressive as well as regressive, and both of these, when you sum up progressive and regressive development, it turns out to be 0. This is important. After that, the important part is that weathering, that is followed by clay translocation. It is the main pedogenic process of soil development. See, what is pedogenesis, we have discussed just now. Not pedogenesis exactly, we have discussed pedology, that is specifically similar to pedogenesis also. After that, just remember that purple soils are known as regosols. After that, you can skip all this. See, you skip only when you have gone through it once. See, if you are just a beginner or a noob, that you haven't gone through this chapter once, if it's your first time, then don't skip it. Just go through it, because it will help you to develop your understanding. Why I'm saying is, skip this, because these are not important from examination point of view, but it's important from your understanding purpose. Now, see, once we have earlier, just a couple of minutes ago, we have read that the most important factors that influence the soil development are temperature and rainfall. Alright. See, the difference between these two statements is that when we talk of the most important climatic factors that influence soil formation, answer would be temperature and precipitation. Alright. But if we talk of most important factors, we are not talking about specifically climatic factors. The answer is rainfall and vegetation. Do not mark temperature over here. Alright, now after that, you can skip this. See, rubification is the red color development. This is just remember that what is rubification. This is just, if you can remember, then remember, then otherwise you can skip this. This part can also be skipped. This can also be skipped. After that, yes, this is important, that at the initial stages of soil formation, apatite form of phosphorus is in dominant form. Alright. After that, during the intermediate phases of development, non-occluded inorganic phosphate is in the dominant form, and at the advanced level, when weathering has reached to its peak, in that situation, inorganic secondary phosphates in the occluded form predominate. Means basically this is the available form. Alright, so remember the sequence, that initially apatite form, then non-occluded inorganic phosphates, after that occluded inorganic secondary phosphates. After that, this you can skip this. See, again, the condition for skipping, I have told you, do not skip it for the first time. Alright. After that, soil profile. See, the definition for soil profile is very important. that soil profile is a horizontal layer of soil whose physical features, composition, aid are distinct from above the beneath are referred to as. I'm sorry. This is soil horizon. See what is specifically soil profile. Soil profile is a vertical section of the soil representing various horizons. All right. I don't know whether it is mentioned over here or not, but I'm telling you that, like for example, if see this is a soil profile. This is basically a vertical section of the various soil horizons. These are the various soil horizons you can see. So basically it is a vertical section of all these horizons, and it is collectively known as soil profile. And what is a horizon? A horizon is a horizontal layer of soil whose physical features, composition and age are distinct, means dissimilar from above and beneath are referred to as soil horizon. Alright, means if this is a soil horizon A, this is B, the characteristics of A and B would be different. The characteristics of B would be different from A, and similarly it would be different from C. After that, if you see this figures that are being given, see the important part comes from here, that this topsoil A horizon is known as topsoil. Do not confuse with O. O horizon is not known as the topsoil, it is known as organic horizon. A is known as topsoil, B is known as subsoil, and C is known as regolith. After that, below C there is a bottommost layer that is known as bedrock. Do not confuse that C is known as bedrock. Below C there is a bedrock. Alright. So this is also mentioned over here that O is the organic horizon, A is the topsoil, B is the subsoil, and C is the parent material. The other important thing that you need to remember from A and B part is that there are two zones. First of all, if you talk of that, let's start with O horizon. See, O horizon is organic horizon because all the litter that will be formed, see this are the debris of the plants and various other microorganisms, the organic matter decomposition, all the processes occur majorly in the O horizon. Therefore it is known as organic horizon, while majority of the nutrients that are present, that are available to plants, are present in the A horizon. Therefore it is known as the topsoil. See, and the other important part is that the O horizon, it is the more active soil, mean most active part of the soil is the O horizon. Alright, and after that, if we talk of A horizon, it is also known as the zone of what? Eluviation, means washing out, while the B horizon, it is known as the zone of washing in, that is eluviation, IIIUVIATION. Alright, this is ILL and this is ELL. Alright, see, A horizon is known as zone of washing out because all the water, see, if we apply water for irrigation purposes, all the nutrients that are being present over here, the various salts that are being present, they leach down to the lower horizons, and therefore it is known as the zone of washing out. While they leach down the nutrients and the solutes or various ions that leach down, they get accumulated in the B horizon. Therefore this is known as eluviation zone or zone of washing in. Alright, after that, this A, B and C together, these are known as what? Sorry, this, this A and B together, these are known as solum, SOLUM. And if you talk of all these three, that is A, B and C, all these are together known as what? Regolith. It is being written over here. See, regolith is just not parent material. See, it is a combination of all three, A, B and C. They are together known as regolith. Also, now talking about the soil classification, the most important part is that USDA stands for United States Development Agency. It has classified soil into 6 levels of classification. This is very important that soil has been classified into 6 bases. Number 1, from if you talk from general to specific, it is first is order, then suborder, then grade group. See, first is order, suborder, grade group, subgroup, family and series. See, if you, the question is being asked like which is the smallest part, or must not say part, which of the following is the smallest level in out of the following? Like options are given like suborder, grade, group, family, series. So the answer is series. Series is the lowest order, not order, lowest level, while order is the highest level in soil classification. You might be knowing that there are 12 soil orders, and there are certain suborders and certain sub grade groups also, which is not much of your much importance. The important part starts from here. We see there are various kinds of soils that are being mentioned, like alphy soils. These are various soil orders, sorry, various kinds of not soil. These are types of soil orders. And always remember that in name of order there is a suffix sol that has been mentioned whenever an order is being named, like alphy sol, Andisol, Aridisol, Antisol, Gerasol, Histosols, alright, and Septisol, Molysols, Oxysols. These are various types of soils that has been mentioned. Uh, See, I am not going to dictate each and every line of this part, because you cannot skip any line. I am repeating again, do not skip any line from any word, any line from this page. That is the soil order classification, because it is very, very important. Each and every part is very important. Like for example, it may be asked like, because the following soil is known as volcanic ash soil. So the answer is ND salts. There may be various options like LP salts, ND salts, LED salts. They're very confusing. So you must go to this page itself very thoroughly. This each and every soil order is very important, and each and every line is very important. Like ND salts, these are very young and fertile soils. LED salts, these are dry soils that are present and have a fewer than 90 consecutive days of moisture during the growing season, and they have a surface zone of diaphragm or calcium. This is very important. Not only this, each and every soil order and the description that is being given is very important. After that, this you can skip this part. This is not important. After that, these are the various physical environments. See, talking first of all about the physical environment. See, soil physical environment is controlled by various soil characters like texture, structure, aeration, water mechanical resistance, and depth of soil. Alright, now first of all is the soil texture. See, what is soil's texture? It is the relative proportion, mean in which proportion these three constituent, that is sand, silt, and clay, are present in soil. One thing I like to mention, that sand and silt are together known as skeleton of the soil. Alright, skeleton means as the human body has skeleton, same made up of bones. So in case of soil, sand and silt are known as skeleton, while clay is known as the flesh of the soil. FLESH, flesh of the soil. Alright. So a proportion means in what ratio sand, silt, and clay are present. This is basically known as soil texture. There is various instruments and methods that can be used for determination of soil texture, like international pipette method has been used, hydrometer method has been used, field method is there. So there are various methods that are being used for determination of soil texture. All right. And one important part is that sand, silt, and clay, these are together known as fine earth. All right. This is very important. That fine earth consists of what? It consists of all these three things, that is sand, silt, and clay. See, this everyone knows that sand particle has a diameter of about zero point 0.2 to 2 mm, and are classified as coarse sand, and means if it has a diameter of 0.02 to 0.2 mm, it is coarse sand as coarse sand, while it has a diameter of zero point 0.2, it is known as fine sand. Alright, there is only a difference of decimal. See, this classification of coarse sand or fine sand, this is based on ISSS. Alright, Indian, sorry, not Indian, International Society of Soil Science. This the classification was given by them. While there is another classification of various particles of sand, silt, and clay, that was given by USDA. We'll discuss this classification also in another video, but you remember that in India majorly ISSS classification is being followed. Alright, so just remember that coarse sand and fine sand. From here, there what we can say is the particle size. All right, everyone knows that sand does not has plasticity, it does not has cohesion, or it cannot hold moisture for a long time. So these are very basic things. One important part you remember that sand has a higher amount of macropores than compared to micropores. All right, so it has a high amount of macropores compared to micropores. Then after that, silt has a size ranging from 0.02 to 0.002 mm. Now this is an intermediate particle between sand and clay. Silt is an intermediate one, so it has properties of both, that is clay as well as of sand. Now this is a classification of soil particles that is given by ISSS. This is not a USDA classification, this is ISSS classification. Like clay, silt, fine sand, all these together are coarse sand, fine sand, silt and clay, all these are together known as fine sand. All right, and just if you talk of the gravel and stone, just remember that their diameters. After that we have clay. It is the most important constituent of soil, and one thing you remember that clay is acidic in nature. Means if you talk of its pH, specifically clay is acidic in nature. Means it is a, like it is also mentioned over here that clay behaves like a weak acid. This is true, as it neutralizes the various bases. From this one thing also you also remember that Indian soils are basically alkaline in nature. All right, the acidic soils are very less in area. Now sand and silt are the products of physical and chemical weathering of parent rock. This is very important. While clay on the other hand is a product of precipitation of dissolved parent rock. See, directly the sand and silt are being formed from physical and chemical weathering, while clay is being formed from precipitation of dissolved parent material from the secondary minerals. Alright, this is very important. Now this table is very important for understanding purpose. Like sand has a very low amount of penetrating capacity. This is because it has a high amount of macropores and low micropores, means there is not a balanced ratio of both. Now because of this there is a high amount of aeration. The drainage rate is also good because of this, and the suitability for drainage after range, this is also good for in case of sand. This is basic understand. For understanding purpose, one can easily go through this and understand what has been written. After that you can skip this. There are various textual classes. Like there is certain figure, or I must not say figure, percentage of a fraction of something that must be present to call it a soil. For example, if you say a soil that is silty, this if we say that it is silty soil, to say a soil silty, it must have about 80% of sand silt fraction in it. Like likewise, if a soil is said to be sandy, then it must have 85% of sand in it. And if you want to say a soil clay, then it must have 40% of clay in it. Alright, this is very important, that minimum percentage of the various constituents or minerals that must be present in it to call the soil silty or sandy or clay. This is very important. After that, this is the various range that is being given of various soils, and that is amount of sand, silt and clay that is being present. You just remember of sand, number 1, number 2 of loam, then of silt, then of clay. And just for understanding purpose, that you may not make some of mistakes, remember of clay loam. 1 2 3 4 5, just remember of these 5. You will come to know about basic percentage of these 3. Means amount, one thing important that you remember, that clay has a relative equal proportion of sand, silt and clay, though it must have 40% clay. But if you see, it has 0 to 40% of sand, 0 to 40% of silt, and 40 to 60% of clay. Alright, it has relative similar proportions of sand, silt and clay. Like for example, it is being given like, if we want to say that the soil is what, like it is being mentioned over here, I'm not getting the line. Let's skip that. It has been mentioned that if a particle is said to be, let's skip it. Okay, now moving on to the significance of soil's texture. See, soil texture is a permanent feature. Alright, this is very important. The soil texture is only influenced by organic matter. Do remember that soil texture can only be altered because of organic matter, and that too through millions of years, not in day or two. It has organic matter can influence the soil texture through thousands and millions of years. But basically in long terms, if you say, so soil texture is a permanent feature. All right, so this is the soil textural triangle. It is basically known as a textural triangle. See, there is various soil textures, like it has sandy loam, uh, sorry, loamy sand, sandy loam, sandy clay loam, sandy clay, clay, silty clay, clay loam. These are the various classes that has been mentioned over here. After that, the important part is that you remember this one, that silt that is being present, it is rich in iron, that is followed by manganese, copper and zinc. That if you talk of silt, it is rich, number one, in iron, followed by what? Manganese, then we have copper, and then we have zinc. So remember these nutrients. After that, then this can be skipped. One thing I would also like to mention about is tank silt. See, what is tank silt? This is your task, that to know what is tank silt. This is a very basic thing, that what is tank silt, because if you go through the literal meaning also, that tank and silt, you will come to know. Just google it, what is tank silt, you will come to know. All right, and this is your task to know what is tank silt. My purpose of telling you that tank silt, it is used for the reclamation of sandy soils. All right, and also remember that tank silt is acidic in nature. It has a pH of about 6.5. Alright, after that you can skip this and see bentonite. The important part of bentonite is that it is an impure clay that consists mainly of montmorillonite. Just remember this part, that bentonite is an impure clay consisting of montmorillonite. After that, skip this. This is not important. Same again. This just remember that in terms of long-term application of small doses of NPK, means if I have to apply NPK for long term, then only there will be a biological transformation of various horizons. Alright, and the optimum dose for NPK that has to be applied is 120, 120 to 120, means all will be in equal proportions. After that, you can skip this. This is not important. Again, you can skip this also. You can skip this part also. After that, soil structure. See, basically soil structure is, see, soil texture was the relative proportion, while soil structure is basically how the primary particles, that is means the various primary particles that we discussed, like sand, silt and clay, how they are arranged, in which manner they are being arranged, is known as soil structure. Like it has been mentioned that the primary soil particles, sand and clay, are grouped together and form aggregates, and the arrangement of primary particles and aggregates into certain different patterns is called soil structure. All right, after that, see, this is a very important line, that natural aggregates are called fragments. One thing I would like to mention, that specifically natural aggregates are known as PEDs, PEDs. All right, and the broken PEDs are known as fragments. All right, if the question is being asked like natural aggregates are known as, option is PEDs, fragments, or clods, the answer would be PEDs, and if PEDs is not given, the answer would be fragments. Alright, while cloud is an artificial accumulation of soil mass. After that, how soil structure formation occurs, means the fine clay particles, basically this is a process, like how it formation occurs. Like everyone knows that, if not, then remember that sodium, means basically the monovalent cations, these are mainly responsible for deflocculation purpose. Alright, means they will break down the soil, while the divalent cations like calcium, iron, and sometimes hydrogen, these are yes, hydrogen is an exception, these are used. Aluminium, though it is not divalent, it is trivalent, but aluminium also, and various other cations are there that lead to the formation of, or flocculation means it will lead to the formation of soil aggregates, while sodium will break them down. So basically this is being what has been mentioned over here. The important part is sesquio oxides. See, sesquio oxides are what? These are oxides of what? Iron and aluminium. After that, you can skip this. These are soil aggregates. This you can skip all this. This is not important. After that, aggregate deterioration due to sharing. This is also not important. After that, types of soil structure. This is very important that there are various types of soil structures. See, when particles are unattached to each other, means they are separate, like they are sandy, or like they are clay, or they are silty, they are known as single grain structures. Alright, when they aggregate together to form blocks or certain aggregates, these are known as massive. Alright, between these two, that is single grain and massive, the condition, it is known as aggregates or pets. Alright, means one extreme form is single grain, that means there are single grains like sand, silt and clay. Other form is that they are combined into massive structures, and this is known as massive, and the intermediate form between these two is aggregates. Alright, this is what being important part mentioned over here. Alright, the other important part is the macro aggregates. Macro aggregates are those means that have a diameter of more than 250 micrometer. Just remember that the diameter, that it must be more than 250 micrometer, and for a case of micro aggregates it must be 250, less than 250. One other confusing thing is the macropore and micropore. Macropore have a diameter of more than 0.06 mm. Alright, 0.06 mm, while micropores are those that have a diameter of less than 0.06 mm. After that, specific heat, like specific heat of water is 1, and of soil is this, and organic matter is 0.5. So see, this is an example that is being given over here. Alright, this is the specific heat of 0.33 when soil moisture content is 20%, and this is so and so. Don't remember this because it is being given wrong. It is not correct. Alright, I'll explain it how. I'll not explain, they have explained it themselves. I'll tell how. See, just first of all, let's talk about the latent heat. See, latent heat of vaporization for water is 580. For this fusion purpose, it is what I say is 80. Sorry, for latent heat of vaporization is 580. As you remember this. After that, what I was trying to say is, if you look at this, this is basically the classification, not classification, this is the explanation that has been given of this data, that the specific heat is 0.33 calorie at soil moisture content so and so, and so and so, this would be 0.38. See, this has been explained over here that how it is, but if you do it yourself, you'll come to know that there is a flaw in this, means it's not correct. Alright, we'll discuss this in numerical part. We'll have a separate video for numericals. After that, control on soil temperature. Just skip this part, this is not important. After that, soil air. See, in case of soil air, the important thing you need to remember is the feed air capacity. See, feed air capacity is the fractional volume of air, means simply it is the volume of air that is present in soil at feed capacity. Alright, it is known as feed air capacity. Now, feed air capacity will be highest in case of sandy soil, that is about 25%. In case of loam, it is generally between 15 to 20%, and in clay, it is below 10. See, remember that 15 to 20% is of loam, not of silt. Student may confuse that it is for sand, then it would be for silt, then it would be for clay. This is not so. This is for loam. All right. So this table is very important, specifically in alternate years or once in 3 years a question is directly being asked from this part. See, everyone knows that nitrogen is amount of nitrogen, oxygen, and carbon dioxide that are being present in the atmosphere. All right, so this that atmosphere contains 79, 20 and point 0.3. This everyone knows. The important part is that you'll see the nitrogen content in soil, it is also 79%. All right, after that the oxygen content continuously decreases as we go to finer section, that is this sandy soil has 20%, then sandy sorry the soil air on surface has 20%, then sandy soil has 19.95%, then loam has 19.20. The important thing is that clay has slightly higher amount of oxygen that is being present, though the trend, as we see the trend, it might decrease, but due to a relative equal proportions of macro and micro pores, it has a high amount of oxygen, while the manure soil has the least amount of oxygen, that is 18.23%. Alright, after that same is with the carbon dioxide. We know that in atmosphere it is 0.03. The important part is that on the surface of the soil it is 0.25, in sandy soil it is 0.3, in loam it is 0.62, while in case of clay it is 0.66, and for manure it is 1.85. Means highest amount of carbon dioxide is present in manured soil, while least oxygen is in manured soil. Though if you ask a general layman that addition of manure would lead to increase in oxygen, but it is not so. Now movement of soil air. See, the circulation of air in soil mass is known as soil aeration. This is very simple. The important thing you just need to remember is that the movement of this air is from a region of higher partial pressure to a region of lower partial pressure. Alright, only this part is important. After then you can skip this. One other important thing is that potato, tobacco, cotton, linseed, tea and legumes, they need a higher level of oxygen, because basically some of these crops are shallow rooted, so they require a high level of oxygen. This is not the fact that if it is deep rooted it would not require higher amount of oxygen, but for basic understanding I am telling that generally shallow rooted crops require high amount of oxygen. For example, potato is a shallow rooted crop, tobacco is a shallow rooted, cotton is a deep rooted, linseed is deep rooted, tea is deep rooted, legumes are also deep rooted, but potato and tobacco are shallow rooted crops. Now pore space, the volume of soil that is not occupied by soil particles, means solid particles. So if we talk about, in other words, the volume of soil that is occupied by air and water is known as pore space. Alright, now pores with a diameter of 2 to 20 micrometer are called micropores, and while with the diameter of 200 to 0.3 mm are called as macropores. The important part is that the percentage of macropores present in various soils. For example, in clay it is 50 to 60%. In case of loam it is 30 to 50%, while in case of sandy soil it is 20 to 30%. Also remember that sandy soil contains 25,000 pores per meter square, and the clay soil have 25 million pores per meter square. This is very important that sandy soil is how much? That is 25,000 pores per meter square, and clay have 25 million pores per meter square. After that, soil depth you can skip this part, then removal from this also you can skip this. This is also not important. Then bulk density, this is basically we will deal in other chapter, that what is bulk density, what is particle density. Just remember that cultivated loam has a particle density, bulk density about 1.1 to 1.4. After that this you can skip. Then soil strength, this also you can skip, this is not important. Soil color, see, soil color is important, you need not to skip this. This is very important, that the color of the soil is indicator of various things. Like if you talk of red color, a red sandstone gives red color to the soil. See, do not remember that red soil is red because of red sandstone. Alright, the red soil is red because of the iron oxides that are being present in it, and oxidation of not oxidation, reduction of which produces Fe2O3. See, this is there. Sorry, Fe2O3 is in plus 3 state. I am sorry what I am saying. I don't know. Sorry for this. In Fe2O3 condition, it is in oxidized form, while in case of when it is present as FeO2, it is in reduced form. All right. And because of this iron oxides, the color of red soil is red. The other important thing that you need to remember is whenever there is a presence of silica or lime, the color of the soil will be whitish or grayish. All right. Same is with the saline soil also. Whenever there is accumulation of salts will be there, the soil will be whitish in color. However, the alkaline soils are generally grayish or generally dark in darker in color, means they would be about black to grayish in color. All right, while these saline soils are white in color. Also remember that soils that are well drained, like lateritic soils or the red soils, they are generally give red in color. Like I have told that because of the compounds of iron. All right. Like soils, if there is a drainage is poor in them, then the soil color is more greenish or bluish in waterlogged soils. After that, chemical environment. See what is chemical environment. This is just a basic thing, that it is dynamic reaction that maintains the dilute solution of nutrient elements are dispensable. This is not important. After that, pH. Soil pH is very important. pH, by the way, pH term was given by whom? This is again a question for you, that the term pH was given by whom. See, basically what is pH? Everyone knows that it is the negative logarithm of hydrogen ion activity and the various influence nutrient availability. This is very important. See, the availability of nutrient at certain pH is very important, and one must know the pH at which the various nutrients are available. Like remember that boron is leads out at lower pH while it is fixed at higher pH. This table is very important. You must go through this table each day. Alright, the exact range you must remember that nitrogen is available from 6 to 8. Do not make it 6.5 to 7.5. This is the exact range. You must remember these values exactly in the manner in which they are being mentioned. After that you can skip this. This is not important. Now, cause of acidity and the remedies. See, you can go through this, but let me tell you in a simplistic manner that if the pH is more than 5, all right, then the acidic nature of the soil will mainly due to hydrogen ions. All right, and when the pH of the soil is sorry, the sign I have mentioned over is wrong. If the soil has a pH of more than 5, then it would be because of hydrogen ions, and when it is less than 5 means it is more acidic, then it would be because of aluminium plus iron. Alright, these two ions would be responsible for the decrease in the pH. Alright, and same has been mentioned over here. This has also been also remember that calcium carbonate, that is CaCO3, it is the common liming material that is being used in India, which hydrolyzes into calcium. Alright, like the chemical reaction is being also given, that on hydrolysis of calcium carbonate it forms calcium plus carbonate over here. Now after that, increase in pH is being seen gradually up to 30 days after application of this. You can skip this, is not important. The various causes of alkalinity and its remedies. See, the presence of various forms of what I can say is cations like sodium, calcium, potassium and hydrogen. These are the four ions that are basically contributing towards the alkalinity of the soil. Soil with a higher base saturation means other than hydrogen, specifically because of sodium and presence of free carbonate, that is calcium, the main result for alkalinity. Alright, now one term has been used, that is base saturation. What is base saturation? This is again a task for you. See, I have given 3 tasks. First was what, second was what, and third was what? Do you remember it? If not, then go through it once again. Not go through it, you need to watch the video very carefully. All right, like carbonates of calcium and carbon, they are mainly present because of the presence of various cations like sodium, calcium, potassium and hydrogen. These are the various cations that are being responsible for the alkalinity of the soil. Now exchangeable sodium has a higher effect on pH than of calcium and magnesium. This is very important, that exchangeable sodium has a higher influence on pH as compared to calcium and magnesium. Alright, now this table, it looks very simpler in terms of, if you look at it, it looks very easier to look and understand, but the when it questions come from this table, it is very confusing. So go through this table very thoroughly. This is very important table and very basic table. All right, after that, this is, you can go through this, that what is basically exchangeable sodium percentage. It has been mentioned that it is the degree of saturation of exchangeable sodium complex with sodium. This is the modified form of alkaline soils. Yes, one thing I would like to mention is, what are alkaline soils. See, do not confuse, the alkaline soils are those that have a pH of more than 8.5. No, alkaline soils are not those. Basically soils that have a pH of more than 8.5 are known as sodic soils. Alkaline soils consist of three types of soils. Number one, saline soil, saline sodic soil and sodic soil. Means all these three are collectively known as alkaline soils. Do not confuse with it. Alright, now there are formulas have been given, like soluble salts of gypsum formula is given, of calcium chloride is being given. Just remember their formulas, other thing is not important. Again you can skip this is again not important, and this is also not important. See, phytoremediation, what is phyto means plant remediation, means to revert back or to improve the things that have been done. See, whenever plant is being used for the remediation of any kind, then it is known as phytoremediation. And phytoremediation is specifically useful for the soils that are moderate in salinity, that is saline sodic soils and sodic soils. Now, clay mineral. A mineral is a naturally occurring inorganic substance with a definite chemical composition and distinct physical characters. This definition we have seen in first page also, that what is a mineral and what is a rock. Again, same words, that it is inorganic, has definite chemical composition, means it's crystalline, and has distinct physical characteristics, means one mineral has a different characteristic from the other mineral. Alright, now basically there are various kinds of minerals, like primary minerals and secondary minerals. We have already gone through this. Examples of various primary and secondary minerals are being given. Now the important part is that hydrated aluminosilicates with a particle size of less than 0.002 mm diameter are known as clay minerals. See, this statement word, that hydrated aluminosilicate secondary minerals, these words, do not confuse that. If like options are given, hydrated aluminosilicate secondary minerals with particle size less than 0.02 mm are known as, option is allophane, sesquioxide, clay, none of these. So do not confuse that, it is simply clay. Alright, and when the particle size is 0.00, there are three zeros and there is 20 over here. So when the particle size is about of this much, then these are known as micelles. Means when these are not micelles, when the individual particles of these colloid are known as micelles. See, these colloids have a particle size this, and the each particle of this colloid is known as micelle. Alright, now humus is inorganic colloid. Now what is humus? There is a definition of humus. We will discuss that humus in in irrigation chapter. After that, there is silicate clay mineral. There are three important silicate clay minerals that we know, like kaolinite, montmorillonite and illite. Basically, they can also be classified based on silica and alumina layers, that 1:1, 2:1. These types of minerals, like if you talk of kaolinite, again this paragraph is, each and every line is very important, and one must go through this each see, in this video you go through yourself in this part, that what are kaolinite, montmorillonite and illite group. In next video we'll covering we'll be covering this part again in a tabular manner. All right, so till then, work hard and study well. See, I know today's chapter, the majority of the things I have been saying that go through it yourself, or I have been given tasks that you do it yourself. But see, this chapter is like this only. I must not say this chapter is like this only, but something is done, has to be done from your part also. All right, and don't worry about this. We'll be dealing with this etiquette claim minerals. See, this paragraph, you go through it from once from your side, and then we'll be dealing with the same in a tabular manner. All right, so if you find the video useful, then share with your friends as well as batchmates. Thank you.